How did you become involved with this case?
We received a call out from my Sergeant Ken Ventresca that there was a missing person, and we responded down to New Canaan.
What was the initial role that the Connecticut State Police was with the New Canaan Police Department?
Our initial role was as an assist to New Canaan Police for the missing person.
Did that role evolve over time?
Yes, it did.
How did it evolve?
Eventually, we were cast as the primary investigative agency, so basically New Canaan and the State Police swapped roles. New Canaan was still involved, but the State Police took the lead on the investigation.
And were you, in fact, the lead case officer on behalf of the Connecticut State Police?
Yes.
How did you become assigned as the lead case officer?
I was assigned that by Sergeant Ken Ventresca, my supervisor.
I'd like to talk to you now about May 25th, 2019. You indicated that that was the date that you became involved with the case.
Yes.
Where did you respond that day?
I responded down to 69 Wells Lane in New Canaan.
And was that where you initially responded?
Yes.
And when you arrived at 69 Wells Lane, what did you do?
I met with Officer Tom Patton from the New Canaan Police Department, and I spoke to some of our personnel from the van that were already on scene.
And did you observe anything inside of 69 Wells Lane?
Yes, I did.
What did you observe, sir?
I observed what appeared to be some blood-like stains and on the floor of the garage. I didn't take a close look.
Did you also respond to the New Canaan Police Department that day?
Yes, I did.
Approximately what time?
Probably around, I don't know what time.
Was there a command post at the New Canaan Police Department?
Yes, that's where we established our command post.
And would it be fair to say that there were numerous law enforcement personnel working out of that command post?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, can you explain to the jury as the lead case officer what your responsibilities are?
So I would be responsible for the overall case. That does not mean I do every interview or write every report, but I'm essentially the conduit through which, along with my supervisor, Sergeant Ken Ventresca, the information flows, and I would be responsible for the overall investigation of the case.
And when you say you're responsible for where the information flows, is information being relayed to you by law enforcement personnel?
Yes, that's correct.
And during the course of the investigation, was a person of interest developed as potentially being involved in the disappearance of Jennifer Doulos?
Yes.
Who was that?
Fotis Doulos, her estranged husband.
And did you and fellow law enforcement personnel begin to, for lack of a better term, research Mr. Doulos?
Yes, we did.
Did you learn whether or not he was the owner of a particular company?
Yes, we did.
What company was that?
He was the owner of a construction company you referred to, named the Ford Group.
You mentioned that he was the owner of a construction company. Did that construction company develop houses?
Yes.
And did you become aware of whether or not Mr. Doulos owned several properties in the Farmington and Avon area of Connecticut?
Yes.
Do you recall those properties?
They would include
Your
585.
Honor, now, I allowed some preliminary, I didn't object, it is all leading and now it's hearsay, so I'm not sure this witness's testimony about what he learned or what others learned is relevant or not hearsay, and since this testimony has come out, I'm just objecting on that basis before we go too far.
Well, the question was, do you know what those properties were? And through investigation, this was the lead investigative officer on the case. So investigation leads to certain information. The court is going to overrule the objection.
And I did just want to indicate, Judge, that I'm going to be asking a series of questions along those lines. I'm not offering any of this for the truth at this time, but as the court knows, we're about to get to an interview, and all of this information informs the interview, and so that's why I'm asking these questions. So I'd ask for some leeway.
You can proceed.
Do you recall the addresses?
Yes, I do. I remember some of the addresses. There was the residence at 4 Jefferson Crossing, where Mr. Doulos resided. There was 80 Mountain Spring Road There was 84 and 88 Mountain Spring Road, which are parcels north of 80. There were some parcels, some land on Old Mountain Road, which is a road that connects Eli Road and Mountain Spring Road. And another address is 585 Deer Cliff, which is very close to Fort Jefferson Crossing.
You mentioned that Mr. Doulos lived at Fort Jefferson Crossing. Were you aware of whether or not he lived with anyone at Fort?
You may pose another question, Attorney McGinnis.
Detective Kimball, were DNA samples taken from Mr. Doulos and the defendant?
Yes.
Were fingerprints taken from Mr. Doulos and the defendant?
Yes.
And were full body photographs taken of Mr. Doulos and the defendant?
Yes.
You mentioned that there was clothing which was found in Hartford. Was that clothing sent to the Connecticut State Forensic Laboratory for DNA testing?
Yes, it was.
And did you receive the results?
Yes, I did. Yes, we did.
What date did you receive the results?
June 1, 2019.
And based on those results, did you prepare an arrest warrant for Mr. Doulos and the defendant?
Yes.
Approximately what time and what date were those arrest warrants signed?
I know they were signed on June 1st, 2019. It would be in the evening. I don't know what time specifically.
What day of the week was June 1st, 2019?
I don't know.
Do you recall it being a weekend?
I believe so, yes.
And Judge, I would just ask the court to take judicial notice of the fact that June 1st was a Saturday.
Court will take judicial notice.
Prior to submitting the arrest warrant for the defendant, had you ever met her in person?
No.
Where were you on June 1st, 2019?
I would have been probably at the command post.
At some point did the defendant arrive?
Yes.
And was she under arrest when she arrived?
Yes, she was.
And when the defendant arrived at the police department, did you and Detective Corey Clavey greet her?
Yes.
And were arrangements made for the defendant's attorney, Andrew Bowman, to come to the police department the next day?
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, I'm going to object because clarification. She didn't arrive on June 1st. She arrived
Well,
on
this
June
is
2nd.
this is testimony. That's not an objection, counsel. That's testimony,
It's a mischaracterization of the evidence. Let me just object that.
counsel.
Let me clarify. She arrived in the early morning hours of June 2nd. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It was after midnight. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so you indicated that arrangements were made for attorney Andrew Bowman to come to the New Canaan Police Department the next day. Is that right?
Yes.
And at that point, did you leave the police department and go home?
Yes.
Okay. And what was your purpose in going home?
Try to get a little bit of rest.
I want to direct your attention now to approximately 2:32 p.m. on June 2nd, 2019. Did the defendant agree to provide an interview?
Yes.
Was the defendant's attorney present for the interview?
Yes.
And was this the first time you had met Andrew Bowman? That day?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention now to the defendant, and specifically at approximately 2:32 in the afternoon on June 2nd. Could you describe her emotional condition for the jury?
She appeared, she did not exhibit that she was overly tired. She appeared in good shape. She did not appear under the influence of anything.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of that answer.
She did not appear to be under the influence of anything.
When you were, well, firstly, did you personally speak with the defendant?
Yes,
And did you communicate with the defendant in English or Spanish?
in English.
Do you speak Spanish?
I do not.
Did the defendant ever request the assistance of an interpreter while you were speaking with her?
She did not.
Did Mr. Bowman ever request that an interpreter be present for the interview?
No.
Did you have any concerns about the defendant's ability to understand the English language as you spoke with her?
No.
You indicated that the defendant agreed to participate in an interview. Where did this interview take place?
At the New Canaan Police Department.
Which room at the New Canaan Police Department?
It was in an interview room.
Do you recall what floor of the police department?
I believe it would be the first floor, ground floor.
And when you say an interview room, can you describe that for the jury?
So it was a room, dimensions were approximately, and these are approximate, 12 feet by 18 feet, contained a table, a chair for myself, for Detective Clabby, for the defendant, and for Attorney Bowman. So 4 chairs, and it was monitored by audio and video.
And when you say monitored by audio and video, you mean it was recorded, correct?
Correct.
It wasn't just sort of streamed to another room.
The what? Yeah. And so Foti started talking. He said, okay, but tell me. So Foti said, Jennifer bought a basketball.
Yes,
thing to throw.
there was one.
And she said, which this is very weird. For the 2 years that they've been fighting in court,
Yes.
they were not talking. They were not texting privately. Everything was through a family, whatever.
Yeah, go through it.
And emails, but copied through their lawyers. From what I understood, they never had communication. They would never talk without these tools. It did surprise me that after that report came out, that I haven't seen, but that Fotis told me about, that Jennifer changed. They started talking over the phone. They talked like 2-3 times. That I was upset because I'm like, be careful. I mean, if the report is good for you, let the judge decide, because now everything is like favorable to you. And she's like, no, I think she gets it. I think she understands that the lawyer is trying to get money out of her and extending the case. Anyway, and I was upset. I'm like, no, she's maybe playing something to manipulate the situation because she doesn't know how to use the case.
Let's try to go back.
So
Did you go to a psychologist to talk after that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
This is just, I think it's important. We can.
With him.
Okay, just tell the gentleman what you did. You went to a psychologist, right?
I said I want to talk to a professional because if she really has borderline personality disorders, plus depression, plus a mild something of anorexia, and she's taking pills, this is a person that it can be harmful, and she's gonna try to manipulate. And I want to know what's gonna be my condition, being around her for the rest of my life, and with the kids, if you get them, or if you guys, I was concerned. So he called Humphrey, we made an appointment, and we met, so this is like 2 weeks ago, like before Friday, when the report pretty much came out, which I don't remember. We went to Hartford. I wrote in a paper what borderline personality was, what are the traits of like fear, abandonment, low self-esteem.